Hello and welcome to Education Talk. This is the best program on television on education. I'm Wilma, and on this program we review all challenges faced by stakeholders in education and procure solutions to these challenges. And today we'll be looking at religious education teachers. We need more of them in our school system. To discuss this issue with me today is Dr. Chris Mafidon. He's an education consultant. Dr. Chris, you're very welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Let's see what's been happening during the week now. A campaign to persuade more graduates to become religious education teachers has been launched. The Religious Education Council of England and Wales wants to raise awareness of bursaries of up to £9,000 available to cover training costs. RE has grown in popularity with entries to the full course GCSE rising 19% since 2012. A-level entries have also increased more than any arts, humanity or social science subject over the past 10 years. The Beyond the Ordinary campaign is the first to specifically target potential trainee teachers.
I see pupils tackling subjects like this every day, and I always think to myself, wow, I don't have the answers to any of these questions, and that is exhilarating. There's nothing more exciting in life than a mystery, and let's face it, we don't always focus on that kind of thing, particularly not the big ones. It's easier just to cruise through the day on autopilot, not really thinking about anything. But that wasn't working for me. I wanted something more, something beyond the ordinary. I always knew that I wanted to make some sort of genuine contribution to society, to help people. But I also wanted to help myself, to be stimulated, to be challenged. And young minds have a funny knack for that sort of thing.
What is the difference between Jesus in the Bible and Jesus in other scriptures?
Now, it's safe to say that I'm challenged pretty much every day. I'm always on my toes, tackling the next big question. I can't say that I planned to get into RE teaching. The only thing I ever planned to be was a vet. But as soon as I started reading up on it, I knew that this was the job for me. I don't consider myself religious, but there's an academic side to RE that's fascinating to me. The idea of approaching these huge concepts from an intellectual point of view is one I've developed a real passion for. It's a subject that's easy to be passionate about. I spend my days helping these tirelessly curious kids get to grips with the big mysteries of life, examining spiritual beliefs, walking them through abstract philosophical concepts, and getting into spirited debates over morals and ethics. We live in a dynamic, ever-changing society, full of different perspectives, beliefs and cultures. Learning about these things helps the pupils in my classroom to see the world more clearly and helps them develop a genuine understanding about the world and the people in it. And that understanding will help them to shape the society of the future, a better society. I can't think of anything more rewarding than to have played some part in that. The big questions are never going to go away, but there'll always be people willing to take them on. Because this is one career that's guaranteed to take you way beyond the ordinary. Maybe it's the one for you.
Dr. Chris, the shortage of religious education teachers, how can this problem be solved?
I think it's more of an imaginary problem because up and down the country, every single weekend, there are people from the pulpits teaching. There are younger teachers in the same community. You have a lot of churches now run cell groups and cell leaders. Quite seriously, every cell leader has already had a training in the delivering of Bible teaching.
So when you say cell leaders, you're talking about fellowship group leaders in the Christian community.
That's right. So we have a lot of people that are lay preachers, we have assistant pastors, we have people that are full-time doctors but they teach at weekend, they teach from the Bible. Such people can be engaged. You don't have to have a formal qualification saying B.E.A.D. or B.Ed in religious education before you can teach religion in schools. In fact, it's been shown that if you have conviction, that means if you have a faith, a Christian faith based, The way you would deliver the content is totally different from somebody that just has a piece of paper from a university but does not have any faith whatsoever. Because you teach, one teaches out of conviction, the other one just teaches out of convenience. And so the passion required for you to energize students about the fundamentals of Christian faith or Christian religion is lacking. So in fact, the problem has risen at a very useful time. So every pastor watching the program today should seriously think of engaging with the educational sector and applying for this £9,000 so that they can have that additional training so that they can deliver it in a non-Christian environment. That's essentially what you're doing.
So the challenges the students face is actually having teachers who have no conviction whatsoever about Christianity, teaching religious education.
But what's still, in some schools, because they don't have RE teachers, they allow the geography teacher to teach RE. So you're using a total stranger to deliver the content. Or they get a history teacher to deliver RE, because all they want is somebody that will read the textbook, understand, have some bit of comprehension, and come back and regurgitate it to the student. And you're doing the student no good whatsoever. If anything, you're disabling and disadvantaging the student. Just imagine if you have a pastor that's been through Bible training, been through Bible school, pastors a church, has interacted with men, women, conducts marriages, funerals, and services in terms of naming ceremony, coming to teach that in a classroom. So the fundamental ceremonies of Christian faith and the rituals of Christian faith is what this person practices. So you are having a practitioner teaching the subject. The students are bound to be far more successful than somebody that just reads it because you are fundamentally a geography teacher and you're just reading it so that you can go and teach it in class.
So how can charity organizations and churches participate in ensuring that we have more RE teachers in our schools?
I will recommend every church nominates either the pastor or assistant pastors or fellowship group leaders for this scheme, because it's a government-funded scheme, and say anyone that is in the church that is interested in teaching and contributing to the education of our children, getting involved in community work, is a fantastic opportunity for you to teach a class that has Muslims, Christians, and other faiths, and explaining to them the fundamentals of your faith. So if anything, it's a straightforward thing. It's really come as a blessing to the church. And most churches run Sunday schools. If you're running Sunday school, what we are essentially teaching are fundamental aspects of the RE syllabus. If you've attended Sunday school, you have literally covered more than 70% of the content that is required by the syllabus. So you're just relocating your position within the church and say, we're taking it to a school, and we can take assemblies as well, so you come as a bonus. So I think it's an opportunity that every single church should welcome. Every single church or Christian organization should throw their hat in the ring and use this as an opportunity to engage with the community.
Well, for those who are interested, you can send emails to educationtalk@loveltv.co.uk for more information rather. Now, Dr. Chris, I know you conducted a parenting conference last Saturday, but before we get to that, because there are so many testimonies coming out from that conference, the Easter holiday break is coming. What should parents do?
Identify what age group your son or your daughter belongs to. So if you know the age group, know what key stage assessment they are going to have. For example, if your son is in year 7, that's fine. Key stage 3, you can go on holiday. Visit as many and be as relaxed as possible.
But most parents don't even know the key stages that are most crucial. Most parents don't even understand what key stages are in the first instance.
If you're a regular viewer of this program, you would have known, but if you're still unclear about that, just send us an email. All you need is an email, and we'll send it to you in a PDF version, and you can read it, because you know that any child that is 11, 12, or 13 belongs to key stage 3. At the end of key stage 3, there's an assessment. And then any child that is 14, 15 belongs to key stage 4 or 16. And every 15-year-old and 16-year-old has exams to write in the 2nd or the 3rd week when we come back from the term that we've gone on. Therefore, it's a useful opportunity for you to spend the Easter period to revise and look at whether your school has covered the content that is required for you to write the exam. Some schools may not have covered that. So get yourself or your daughter or your son enrolled in the Easter revision course, so that your son or your daughter can independently be assessed and gaps in their knowledge will be plugged. If you go on holiday, it really means that you are going to disadvantage that child, because when the child comes back from so-called holiday, they go straight into the exam hall. So I wouldn't recommend any year 11 or year 12 student to go on holiday, or year 13, because year 13, when you come back, you're doing your final exams at the secondary school. You'll be doing your A-level exams. So you mustn't go on holiday. Book into the Easter revision period or Easter revision program, where they literally look at past papers, use past papers as a diagnostic tool to find out which area your school has covered, or which area your school may have covered but you've forgotten, or which area your school has not covered. You need to tackle these 3 points. If you tackle these 3 points, you're literally moving yourself 2 grades up. If you don't, and go on holiday and forget about your revision, when you come back, you will have forgotten what you've learnt. And now you now struggle. Now becomes literally a learning deficit. And I wouldn't want anyone viewing this program to be caught in that quagmire, because it's really unnecessary.
Now, before we listen to what some parents had to say about the parenting conference, why a parenting conference in education?
Because the parent plays a very valuable role in the education of the child. The teacher is a professional and a practitioner, but the parent has been there for a longer period than anybody, any teacher or educator.
But if we look at the active hours in a day, the child actually spends most of the time with the teachers.
Yes. However, if you look at the full day cycle, there are 24 hours in a day. Most students spend 8 hours in school. So if you look at the entire day, you find that they spend more time with their parent. If you look at the waking hours, yeah, it looks as if they spend more time with the teachers. So parents should therefore look at weekends and be able to know the student better. You know whether your son likes waking up in the morning and doing some work, or prefer to work just before they go to bed. So the parent's knowledge of the student is superior to that of the teacher, because the parent has had the child for much longer than the teacher will have. Most teachers will come in for 1 term, or for 2 terms, or for 3 terms, or probably for a year or 2. But you've been there for years. So you have experience. You know your child more than anybody can ever think of. Even when they are a teenager, when their adolescent changes, you still know the child. You know the baseline. So that's the reason why every parent plays a far, far more useful role than the education system acknowledges, than school can even understand. So if you know that, then there has to be partnership between home and school. And that perfect partnership is what produces the best results. And
teachers can change anyway, but the parents can't change.
Yeah, that's right. You can't disown your child. You can't have your child for a term and then go for another child.
Next, let's listen to what some parents had to say about the parenting conference.
I am here at this conference and presentation as one of the presenters, and I had the privilege of being able to sit and to participate in this conference, not only as a speaker, but as a student. And I was impacted by the presentation of Dr. Chris on how he simply started to explain the power and capacity of a brain cell. And just through his impartation, I received the kind of inspiration I needed in order to be a much better grandparent than I am, because I am a parent already and my children are adults, and now I can be a much better grandparent. And I want to say that the presentations that I received and I heard here today impacted me as a man that is a grandparent now. And to anyone who has missed this presentation, I want to encourage you that when you are told and you receive information about presentations like this that's going to help you become a better parent, a better father, a much better mother, just one idea is going to help you solve problems that you're having in your family. Just one strategy can help you navigate those difficult waters of adolescence if you're able to come into this kind of environment.
What some parents had to say about the conference. Now, Dr. Chris, some take-home tips.
1, every single child goes through stages. And what you will need to be able to get your child to achieve the best at pre-adolescent is totally different from what you need at adolescent stage. So you need a lot of encouragement and praises at a younger year. As they grow older, especially as they cross puberty, you have to negotiate with them. That means you have to say, if you're going to do this, I'll do this. If you're able to get your homework done on time, then you can do this. Because you are now dealing with a semi-adult, and you cannot just give instructions and expect them to follow. Because when you train a child in the way he should go, when he grows, it's difficult for him to deviate from it. So you lay fundamental principles down before the age of 11. That's before they leave primary school. If you have that pattern already established and that habit already developed, it's very difficult for you to now acquire a new habit when you go to secondary school. For example, if you learn to write with your right hand, it's very difficult for somebody to now persuade you to write with the left hand. So those are some of the truths you must know about children because of the stages they go through. Number two, you must have their confidence all the time. You must be able to get them to confide in you. If they confide in you, you're not just a parent, you're also a friend, so they can tell you their own difficulties. And then you mustn't be judgmental. You mustn't, because you've not been through the same process they're going through at the time they're going through. The pressures of being a student today is radically different from that of 20 years ago. The exposure you have today is totally different from 20 years ago. So you have to reset your time and then listen a lot more than talking. Because most people just come in, talk, and say, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. You should find out, why did you do this? And then the child comes up with their own justification. Then you logically reason with that. And so, no, you shouldn't have done that because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're carrying the child along, you're communicating with the child. And then the last but not the least, you have to be informed about the changes in the educational system.
Very important.
It changes all the time. Follow on social media the big educational institutions and find out what they want you to do now, which is again different from those of yesteryears. So those are the key points that we discussed at the conference. That was the main gist of my presentation. And every child is a genius, of course. You must go with that conviction, not just a mantra. Conviction that your son or your daughter has a gift. It can be musical, it can be sporting, it can be academic. Every single child, if you observe them long enough, you'll be able to pick up their area of passion and interest, and you work on that, and they'll be champions in it. Not just local champions, but national champions. So if you work with that in mind, you look for it. If you think it's not there, you dismiss everybody that says anything and say that is, oh, that's philosophical. No, it's not philosophical, it's real.
Which means every parent has to be up to date. You can't say, no, these are the technologies of the new days. I can't cope with the new technologies. No, you can cope because you've got the brain cells to cope with whatever you train yourself to cope with.
Absolutely.
If you see your child fond of a gadget, it's good to study the gadget, know what the child is looking at in the gadget and get to know more about it than the child.
And the child will love to educate you about his interests. Because that's his interest anyway. He's passionate about it. So if you give him any listening ear, he will tell you how the gadget works. If there's a new version, he'll be able to tell you the benefits of the new version compared to the old one. And you might find that some of those might be useful too for your own professional work or your professional life. So don't dismiss it. Know that you can educate your son, and your son can also, or your son or daughter can also come back and re-educate you about new tools.
And that also helps you censor what the child is actually exposed to.
Absolutely.
And not exposed to as well. Now, you had a conference, first of all, before we go to the conference, let's talk about the career conference by Lloyds Bank in Westminster, and you've been invited to speak.
Yes, every year most students choose subjects that they like without having a broader view of what career options that those subjects lead to, or they drop subjects that they don't like without knowing whether or not when you apply to university they might want you to have an A or a B in that subject. So what Lloyds Bank and the Real Society is doing is putting together this conference, they've been doing every year, to see how children in years 7, 8 and 9 can be educated and exposed to professionals that are already in the field so that they are informed not just by teachers now or by school or by the career advisors in the school, but by real-life professionals. Say, look, if I were you again, this is what subjects I'll be interested in. If I was going to read law, I'll seriously look at Latin and see how Latin will play a role, because I never knew that the entire current legal system was based on the Roman system, which is based on Latin. So those are some of the things that we are hoping to look at. And then know that you're not doing a subject because of a teacher. you're doing it in spite of a teacher. So if you don't have any connection with a teacher, or you think there's no chemistry between you and your history teacher, meanwhile you know that history is going to be relevant to you at uni, you better ignore that and go for the subject. Because
can parents and students take part in this conference?
Yeah, there's a parallel session for the parents. Although it's directed primarily at students, but there's a parallel session for the parents, and if you're a parent, I would take the day off and come down.
What about the students? How can they take part?
The students, all you need to do is register, or again, if you send us an email, we'll send you the link where you can register. Register for it, it's free, it's funded, so you don't have to pay anything. All you need to do is wake up in the morning and turn up for the conference, and then interact with very, very many people. And the scholarships available for university will be launched as well in that conference. So if you really want to save yourself paying £9,000 a year, there's an opportunity for you to attend the conference and find out about scholarship for universities.
So it's a career seminar by Lloyds Bank in Westminster, and if you want to register, just send an email. There are also scholarships available. Now let's talk about the largest meeting you had in Oxford.
It was basically entrepreneurship, because most people finish university and want to say, oh, how do I write my CV? Or what jobs should I apply for? The Entrepreneurial Society is looking at how can I set up a business. So writing your CV is not just the only thing. You can also write a business plan. If you have ideas that you've been incubating all these years, you can start thinking of it at university, because most of the great companies we have today were ideas hatched as undergraduates by Bill Gates as an undergraduate student, Steve Jobs, undergraduate student. So you can see most of the new technologies and the real movers and shakers today started when the youth were at their prime and they could logically work things out. So the Oxford Entrepreneurship Society pulled together, got Lord Boymer was there, got a few venture capitalists from Silicon Valley, a few business angels were there, literally guiding students and saying, what are the essential ingredients that you require to be successful as an entrepreneur, especially as a young entrepreneur? Which
means students have to know you go to school not only to get a job, but you can become an entrepreneur, an innovator, and you can actually change society.
That's what the world is saying. That's what we're looking at. The Industrial Revolution is dead and gone, where you have to recruit men and women that will work in the industry. But right now, you have young men and women that are entering the job market at a young age, and you have equal number of young men and women that are setting up startups and saying, this is my idea, this is what I think I can do for the society, and this is how I can change the world. Twitter is one useful example. I mean, tons and tons of that. In technology, out of technology, you have to think outside the box. If you do, you'll be employers of labor, not just fighting to be an employee.
Now let's talk about the meeting you had at Dorchester Hotel. What was the thrust of your discussion? How is it related to education? What have the students got to learn?
I mean, we spent time together. I spent time together with the Chief Air Marshal, the head of the Air Force in Britain, and we're looking at challenges that the Air Force is having. Number one is the training. We're having fewer and fewer people doing maths, science, and physics in school. So we cannot, the Air Force right now cannot recruit enough engineers. So if you're watching this program and you're thinking you don't know your professional leaning here, that's one thing you should think of. Think of doing the sciences or any of the STEM subjects, because the opportunities that the sciences open up to you, they are vast, and they are something that you can never ever fill. So we need more physics graduates if we can get them. We need science graduates if we can get them. We need engineers to be very keen on developing aeronautics engineering, that's fine. Even doing general engineering, you can then you can sub-specialize as a master's degree student and understand that. And then they need to be exported to previous British-based colonies. So the Commonwealth needs a lot of scientists. If we can train enough domestically to cover our domestic needs, there are many more that are required externally because of the advantage of being able to be fluent in the English language, which is essentially the global language for communication and global language for commerce and industry. So you need to be able to really reposition yourself and know that youth unemployment only belongs to those that have not aligned themselves with the needs of the industry.
Youth unemployment only belongs to those that have not aligned themselves with the needs of the industry. We'll pick up from that next week. But just before we go, let's talk about the parents again. One tip, it is Easter holiday coming up. What should parents do again?
Get your son or your daughter booked into the Easter courses, Easter revision courses. The Excellence in Education runs one. And you don't have to physically be there. You can do most of them online as webinars or with a Google Hangout. So you cannot say you're going on holiday when you have exam 1. If you're in Key Stage 1, age 7, you have your Key Stage 1 exam. If you're in Key Stage 2, age 10 or 11, you have the end of your Key Stage 2 exam. Avail yourself of the Easter period and make sure that you get the grades that you rightly deserve.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris. Thank you very much for coming on the program. And viewers, this is Education Talk. Now for parents, if you have more questions and you didn't get all the answers here, just send emails to educationtalk@olovoltv.co.uk. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of our programs.